Welcome to one of my chess games that I'm proud of. This was against a higher rated opponent, as you can see, 1141 up here, and I'm sitting at 1096. Always enjoy getting over 1100, but I really enjoyed this game because I was focused and felt like I had the game in control the whole time and just kind of imposed my will. So without further ado, let's get started. So I open with the Queen's Pawn. You know, Netflix has been showing the Queen's Gambit lately, so let's go with that. And I like the Queen's Gambit because it allows you to undermine this center pawn a little bit, which, always want to keep a lot of power control over the center of the board. It's always my goal in the beginning. With any opening, I think would be nice. So this is kind of a poison pawn. If you take this pawn, which my opponent does, it's not a big deal. You just grab it back with your bishop. And now I'm controlling this square. The pawn is controlling these two squares. My knight is controlling this square. I've got a lot of action going on here. So I'm feeling really good and in control at this point. So he's pushing this pawn to keep my, bishop from doing this and pinning his knight, which is fine. I had no intentions of that anyway, so I just continue with my development. My idea is, at this point, is moving this pawn up to grab even more space and to apply even more pressure. So I'm going to castle first because ideally I want to get this rook out to push this pawn higher. So here we go. So he castles. I go ahead and push my pawn. He pushes his pawn because if you look, my next move is going to be this fork his knight and bishop, which would be brutal. So he would be losing one of them. So to avoid that, he moves there. Yeah, I could take that, and I'm still kind of forking, but his bishop could take me, and there's a knight exchange, and it's capture, capture. But I decide to go ahead and press forward, and this grabs up again more space in his territory, and now the knight is under threat, and the knight must move out of the way. So he moves the knight here, which attacks the bishop. Kind of clever. So we just move the pawn up here to protect that bishop and keep our solidification of power in the middle of the board. He moves his pawn to undermine. Again, he wants to break up this power structure. No question about that. I'm sure I would want to as well. But I pay no mind to that. I just continue and develop my bishop here and pinning this knight. Of course, you can't move the knight without losing the queen, so this knight is no longer playing chess. So I like that. So he takes me there to go ahead and, again, undermine my power structure. I take back, and still I'm in control, complete in control here. And this pawn can't move forward because I'll grab the rook, which is nice. So again, this knight is useless. He can't go anywhere. He can't move here. He can't move there. He's just kind of out of the game as well at this point in time, which is great for me. So then he does the same thing, decides to pin my knight. And I don't like that. I don't do well with pins, I find. I try to eliminate them. So I'm moving this pawn forward here, so, naturally he's going to either escape or take my... And if he takes my thinking here as well is if he takes this knight, then my queen will recapture, and I've got my queen now playing chess developed and in front of the king, kind of in the direction I want to go in anyway. So he does do that, so I do that in return. He does the same thing to me to try to force my pin off of his knight. But in this case, it works for me because when I take his knight, if he takes with the pawn, he opens up the king and exposes his king, which obviously you're not going to want to do with the queen just sitting right there. So he is forced to go with the queen, but of course I'm going to change queens or exchange, I should say. Because then the king is, again, exposed, and that's what we want at the end of the day. So at this point of the game, I'm feeling pretty good because even though we're even, I'm still in massive control of the center of the board. His bishop is locked up behind this pawn. This knight is doing nothing. It's not playing chess. And so I look at my pieces, and now my pieces, the rooks are connected. My knight is not really playing chess. He's not really doing anything effective, so let's get him into the game. So now my thought is, I'm going to move... if I can get my knight to this square here, it's going to take me a couple moves, but this is really a powerful square for the knight. You know, he's not under attack by anything, and he can just grab this pawn, maybe move here next. So that's the goal at this point. So I move my knight there. He moves his rook. I'm not sure what that was about. I'm just continue on with my plan. And in chess, even a bad plan is better than no plan. I'm sure most people know. So now he's attacking the rook, which is fine because ultimately I want my rook where my knight is. I want my rook right here in front of that king, right? So that's fine. If he wants to attack the rook, I'll just move up. He's putting out his rook on an open file, which is always a good chess tactic. Probably would have done the same. Move my knight here. Now his knight's coming back to help defend the king because he sees things are starting to go south, and he wants to get this knight playing chess again. It's doing nothing over here for him. It's always bad to move your knights to the end, I think, because they can't move off the board, and you really, you know, limit their range when you move to the last square on the board. Excuse me. Anyway, so of course I take check. He moves out of check. I'll grab a free pawn here too. Of course, can't retake due to the bishop. Now he attacks the rook, but that's fine because again, I wanted my rook in this position anyway to apply pressure on that king. So I moved my rook down. This move, I really don't understand what he attempted to accomplish here. Maybe he's just desperate to get that knight out of there. But so naturally, I'm going to take that rook. Always a rook for a knight is always a plus in my book, you know, especially as the end of the game begins to near. Here I go check because now I feel like he's only got one rook, and if I can eliminate the other rook, which I can right here, then I've got a rook and he doesn't. And even though we're still, you know, two major pieces to two major pieces, the rook is more valuable than his knight. It has more flexibility, and I'm still in control of the center of the board. So attack the bishop. He wisely moves his pawn to, you know, protect the bishop. And now my idea is to launch this pawn down and get a queen. So his king comes running over, and I just solidify the position here so the king doesn't have anything to go on. And so I'm going to try to pass that pawn and protect it as I pass it with that rook move, but he just goes in front of it, and so now I have really nothing over there. So I come back and attack the knight, but then he defends the knight. So, and I, you know, seriously can't move here, clearly, and I can't move here because of the knight. So I'm kind of in a quandary there. So let's go with the pawn attack, and he neutralizes that. So I come back, and we just dog it out for a minute. He puts me in check. Moves his king out. So at this point, he's so desperate to get his knight playing chess that he moves it into the line of fire with the bishop, thinking it's protected with the king. But no, I go ahead and make that trade every day because now he only has a bishop that can only, you know, the bishop is only on its own color. So anything on a white color is unaffected by that bishop. So he's playing with half a board, and I'm playing with the whole board now. So definitely looking good in this position. So now I still want to push that pawn down at the right hand side. So I'm go check there, move down here, and just kind of protect that pawn as he comes down. He sees what's going to happen. He sees how it's inevitable, so he has to take it. Now is the only chance he's going to get to take that pawn and prevent it from becoming a queen. So he does it. I take him check. He moves to attack the rook. I move back, and here's where he resigned because, you know, it's just mop up from here on out. Obviously, any chess player will tell you that. Anyway, really enjoyed that chess game. Really just felt good about my focus and concentration, and really just imposed my will. Very cool game indeed. Anyway, have a good day. Thanks for watching.